So, all right. So, Shaka, like I said, I just wanted to get a couple minutes to kind of talk about some economic issues that's been going on the continent, and you kind of an expert on this because you've been on the ground level. So, this is Market Mondays, and we do talk about finances. So, I think it's appropriate to talk about what's going on in Congo. So, can you kind of just educate our audience for people that might not be fully educated on what's going on in Congo right now and why it's important?
Well, I think that, we realized in the last 10, 15 years that now oil has been surpassed in value by data. Data is more, for the most part, data is more valuable than oil. Oil used to be the metric. It used to be gold, then it was oil, now it's data. And people want as many data points as they can on people to sell them products, right? And data, servers, crypto, and all of these things are being created by African minerals. And we've been sold this very poetic story about Wakanda and how, there's this place in Central Africa which is full of vibranium, and it's Congo. And right now, what we have an Africa that should really be a United States of Africa, a USA, but it's very disparate and very separate in the way that it does business and it does trade. So, like, for instance, if you want to go and speak to the USA, you got to speak to the whole of the USA. That's nearly 400 million people, or however many people is there. If you want to go and speak to Africa, you can speak to a country as small as Lesotho, or a country as small as Ghana, which is 30 million people, right? And you'll be having a China speak to them. That's 1.4 billion people speaking to a country of 30 million people. So obviously they have a lot easier way of being able to bargain. And what happened is, with Congo in particular, is that when the smartphone was invented, the minerals that were needed for the smartphone came from Congo. And so that was what happened in 1998 when Congo was invaded. And between 1998 and 2003, 6 million people died as a result of that grab for minerals. And you have a country like Rwanda, which has been historically the agents for their clients in Europe, who, under the guise of and you see people like John Legend, who clearly don't care about genocide, going and performing a few days ago Global Citizen in Rwanda. But then you have people like you have sisters like Thames who are canceling their concerts because they understand that the geopolitical, geostrategic battle that's going on in Africa right now is based on African resources. And I give you an example. When I was in Congo in 2022, so I've been going to Congo for nearly 10 years now. When I was in Congo in 2022, Rwanda was exporting $540 million worth of gold. Bearing in mind, they don't have no gold, right? But now Rwanda's exporting $1.6 trillion of gold, and they're projected to export annually. $1.6 billion of gold, and they're projected to export annually $3 billion worth of gold. Congo produces 160,000 tons of coltan and of cobalt each year, right? The rest of the world combined is doing about 40,000 tons. So coltan is what is used for mobile phones and CPU processing units. Cobalt is what is used for batteries for EVs. So now you have all of these countries in Europe who are basically saying, hey, we want to catch up with China and we want to produce a bunch of electric vehicles. So they're building these gigafactories. They need all these minerals from Congo. So Rwanda signed an MOU agreement to provide those minerals for the rest of Europe to be able to do this. And then at the same time, they don't have these mines. So what do? They invade and they occupy a mine called Rubaya, which is the biggest coltan cobalt producing mine in the world. And all of a sudden, they've got record exports of this mineral. So where it's being touted as this, is being touted as an African civil war, because when it's like, black on black crime, they created this racist term. We never say white on white crime, right? They created this black on black crime in America to try and dehumanize Black Americans. They created tribalism and tribes in Africa to dehumanize Africa. So if it's a tribal war, it's like, well, they're killing each other, so it doesn't really matter. Where I'm looking on my phone this morning, and I'm seeing 20 young guys being executed in Congo by these M23 soldiers who are being portrayed almost as liberators of ethnic Banya Malenge Tutsis in Congo. But the reality is they're there for minerals. It's all follow the money game. And Congo has been destabilized for all of this time just for the specific reason of minerals. There's no other reason to kill that many people indiscriminately. And where we saw a few weeks ago 3,000 people killed in like 3 days or 4 days, like my village in Congo, that they came into the village in Congo. Everybody had to get out of the village in Congo. Thank God all the kids are back and everybody's safe. But they also had emptied a prison of 4,000 people, and 160 women were raped and burned to death. So these things that are happening in almost silence and secrecy, but really the whole thing is just a minerals game. And Europe and China and everybody else is tacit complicit because they know if the situation stays the way the situation is, then they'll be able to keep getting a free stream of African minerals.
So this is when you talk about follow the money, and we talk about investments in the Magnificent Seven and all these tech companies, whether it's from a GPU standpoint or CPU standpoint, data centers. That's on the surface, but in order for them to have those products, it's kind of like goes down the line to the place on the planet that has probably every mineral on the planet Earth exists in Congo, correct?
There's only two that it doesn't have, californium and moscovium. So every mineral on the periodic table, apart from those two, Congo has in abundance.
So this is one of these humanitarian situations, and I want to get into that because we've been around each other a lot, but I've never heard the root of it. Obviously, the work that you're doing in Congo, we're here in Ghana, you have a school here, you're working in Ethiopia. When did the humanitarian efforts start for you?
I had this idea before Black Panther movie of Africa was Wakanda. I was raised Rasta, and I was raised with this back to Africa Marcus Garvey mentality. So I always believed that Africa was our motherland. Like I thought that was, when I get there, it's going to be the promised land and people are rich and everything is cool. And I only started doing this work in Congo in particular because I heard a story of a woman called Mama Masika, who she was raped by 22 guys before she passed out. And her husband was chopped up and killed in front of her. And then she was raped on top of her husband. I'd never heard anything that crazy in my life. I was like, hang on, this happens on Earth? Like, how can this happen? Like, how can you even be aroused by like that type of destruction of a woman? And when I heard that story, and I Googled which is the richest country in the world, and Congo came up. And then I Googled which is the poorest country in the world. Congo came up as well. So like GDP, Congo's annual GDP per capita is $550. But there's 24. Oh, well, I say forget 24. The 24 trillion is the old number. It's like 40 trillion dollars worth of mineral resources in the ground because of the way that that the resources, especially resources that are sought after, appreciate over time. Now these resources are becoming more and more valuable. And so how can the richest country in the world be the poorest country in the world at the same time? And this continues in and along the lines of the rhetoric of Africa is a breadbasket for the rest of the world, but can't feed itself. So I just was like, all right, cool. How can I go and help this woman and her family? Because I've saw what happened to her. And then I did a boxing match. I used to box when I was in the military. I did a boxing match, and I took the money to go and give to her family to just, that was the beginning of my journey in Africa. I'd always done things in the hood, in Leeds where I grew up in, I did various things in London as well. So I did stuff in my own community first, fitness, health, wellness, those type of things. But then I was like, I need to go over to Africa and see how I can be of use. But when I got here to Africa, I realized how many people are exploiting Africa, whether it's the politicians, whether it's the NGOs, neocolonialism. I've never seen anything like the amount of exploitation here as anywhere else in the world. So it started for me with that. But where I'm at now, it's like sustainable business, I think, is the only way to do things.
How can we stop some of the colonialism and taking from tech? Because the question that I always get when this subject comes up is if we're investing in the market, we're kind of aiding in some of the corruption. Like, what's the solution to stop this from happening, or is there one? I know it's heavy, and I know it's layered.
I mean, it's nowhere heavy as the videos that I got on my phone. I think that the gravity of the situation will only change because nobody's going to stop consuming tech. That's a given, right? But I think the gravity of the situation is only going to change when enough of our people care enough about it to change the way that the minerals are extracted. And it needs to be like, apartheid South Africa, where the whole world's like, no, this is enough. There was a point at which everybody said, you know what, we can't just keep on using single-use plastics. And then everybody started to get the whole recycling thing. I think that this is, if you've seen the movie Avatar, this is Avatar. Literally, the land is being blown up. Villages are being burned so that Americans can take minerals. And because of the way that taxes are used for these heinous crimes, whether I went to war in Iraq when I was 19, 20. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I was doing, but that was a war for oil. We got told that we were going there to protect, people and win over hearts and minds and all of this stuff. The reality is we were there for oil. Same with Afghanistan for opium and the methadone, codeine, all of those things that are in the medical, the big pharma. This is a war for the tech industry, and it's the ground zero for the war in the tech industry. And I think until there's a critical mass of people who know about this, are informed about this, and then say, no, this is enough, nothing's going to change, because the way it's being presented to people, the rhetoric and the discourse around it is just Africans killing other Africans.
There you have it. Shaka, thank you for coming. Before you leave, what's some resources that people can actually help if they want to try to help the situation?
They can go to iheartafrica.com. That's IHEART Africa. No, not .com. Sorry. iheartafrica.org. IHEART, the word Africa, and then .org. We have an Instagram as well. I think there's so much stuff that is out there and it's researchable, but right now Rwanda's doing an amazing PR campaign to pretend like they ain't involved in this. And you got Kagame talking about, he doesn't know where his troops are. Meanwhile,
that was crazy.
Meanwhile, right, I don't know where my troops are. Meanwhile, the graves are being filled in Rwanda of Rwandan soldiers that are dying. So there is a war going on. You can also check out the Instagram of iHeart Africa, check out the website of iHeart Africa. You can also go on my Instagram and check out various resources that I've shared over the years. I've been sharing about this for 10 years. But the main thing is that we need to, we were speaking about white Jesus the other day, right? We need to see ourselves as our own form of validation and love ourselves enough to care about what's going on with other Africans around the world. And until we see the kings and the queens and the gods in ourselves, and we see value in ourselves, this isn't going to change anytime soon. And while we still got the YNs, so the colloquial term is now running around in the streets of New York or in London with zombie swords stabbing each other because they're black, but when they see a white person roll through, they're like, whoa, I ain't gonna do nothing to that person. We need to actually see each other as brothers and sisters more. That's why I believe in Pan-Africanism. And thank you for having me. And I'm sure I'm gonna see everybody again at InvestFest. On a more positive note, though, we're building a city in Ghana.
We're going to talk about that later. Yeah, for sure.
On a more positive note.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you, my brother.
Shaka Bars.
Appreciate you.